Um, Hello, this is Jimi Sayo, the host of the PCOS Summit, and we are here for another installment as part of the training and presentation series for this year's summit. PCOS stands for Polycystic Ovary Syndrome, a condition that affects about 20% of women globally. So if you don't have PCOS, you almost certainly know somebody who has it. And it can account for a lot of the issues with weight control, foggy brain, a whole load of things I won't go into right now. So we got about 20 experts here talking about different aspects of PCOS, and there's often a lot of interconnectivity in what they're talking about. And one thing that kept on coming up was fermentation. They're all recommending eating fermented foods. So I thought, right, let's get an expert in to help us understand what this is and how we can make it for ourselves. To this end, we now have with us today Fiona Staunton, who's the director of Fiona's Food for Life. Fiona started her own successful catering business in Dublin in the late 1990s and was catering for private and corporate functions with some of Ireland's biggest financial institutions. She's passionate about healthy whole foods and decided to set up her own business where she provided corporate wellness classes, private group demonstrations and demonstrations. She's an experienced chef and educator, and Fiona brings her nutritional knowledge, culinary and organizational skills, and her home economics expertise to participants in a warm and relaxed environment. Wanting to run her own food business from a very young age, Fiona was inspired by the recent whole food revolution in the food industry and decided to embark on a journey of teaching and empowering people to create great food at home. She has presented demos on live TV, she's written for magazines, and was nominated for Best Cookery School in Ireland in 2018. She spent 8 years in Australia, and she's a keen sailor, and she volunteers at the National Yacht Club in Leary.
Leary, perfect.
Yeah, I was trying to pronounce it as I saw it. Okay, so Fiona's going to be talking to us today about how to make fermented foods at home and improve your gut health. And she'll explain to us why this is important to women with hormonal imbalance issues. And in particular, I'm keen to know, does it taste nice? I've never eaten anything fermented before, and that might be the same for many here. So I hope you can convert us. Over to you, Fiona.
Thank you. Perfect. Thanks a million, Jimmy. So I hope after this you'll be loving your fermented foods. So just to give you a little bit of background, first of all, I have lots of experience in nutrition, but I'm not actually a nutritionist. I'm more of a chef and a home cook, and I want to show you how you can nourish yourselves by creating fermented foods and probiotics at home. The first thing you need to think about is fermented foods are nature's probiotics. So that's as simple as that. It's nature's probiotics. And there's a couple of things I'll talk you through before I actually show you how to make some of it yourself and show you what you can do with it. So first of all, it's all about the good bacteria versus the bad bacteria in your body. So to give you a really good example, if there's a party on and somebody, you've got food, and say, for example, there's food poisoning, there's salmonella in that food. If everybody eats that food, not everybody's going to get sick. It depends about your own gut health. So if your gut bacteria is really good and strong, and it's up here, and you consume this food, say with the salmonella, the bad bacteria will be down here. Once the good bacteria is higher, that's okay. You're not going to get sick. But if you've a poor gut health and your good bacteria is down here, and then you take the food that, say, has a salmonella in it, the bad bacteria are winning because they're higher than the good bacteria, and that's when you get sick. So that's the aim, is to get the good bacteria always better than any of the bad bacteria. Consuming fermented foods helps with healthy digestion. And there's a huge, it can be many chronic health conditions, or it can just be a nice regular digestive system. It plays a big role in your immune system. For me, I think that's probably one of the biggest things. I have a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they've never had antibiotics in their life. So I very seldom get sick or pick up colds, and that I put down to the whole really good, strong gut health. So they also produce vitamin B and vitamin K for the host. Now you are actually the host, as you will see as I go on talking about these things, because there's actually 10 times more microorganisms in and on your body than there are cells in your body. So it's not really your body at all. You are the host. One thing I would say is to be careful of heavily advertised yogurts. So a yogurt is a fermented food. But the heavily advertised ones that have, lots of fruit and sugar in it, which obviously PCOS you're trying to avoid, and really they don't have many good bacteria in them. So I would avoid those if you can, and have something like the milk kefir here, which I'm going to show you in a minute how to make. It's important to have a good healthy gut lining. So you have a huge long intestinal tract, and it's actually sterile at birth, but it's really important to have good healthy lining. And the good thing is, if you don't, you can actually improve it as you go along by consuming fermented foods. So a leaky gut, which will lead to allergies and things like that, that's associated with a poor gut lining. So you want to build it all up to avoid leaky gut, and you can help with your hormonal balance, etc. So by the end of this, you'll really be convinced how much fermented foods you need to have. It also helps with your body's own energy. Each of your organs need energy to function, but your own body needs energy as well. I can really see it in my 7-year-old when she comes home from school. If she's a bit tired, the first thing she wants is her water kefir. She feels that that's going to give her energy and make her feel better. So there's many chronic health conditions that can be reversed or prevented. So it's really important to have the good gut health. So that's a sciencey layman's introduction. Now on to what equipment you actually need. So you don't need any specialist equipment, which is great. When you're making milk kefir, you need to strain it. You need a non-metal strainer. That is one item that can be a bit tricky to get. We've got Home Store and More, a store here that you can often get them in, or an old school hardware store. You need some muslin. Fruit flies love fermented food, so you want to keep them out. But fermented food take on the characteristics of your unique environment. So a milk kefir I make would take different to one you make, Jimmy. So it is important you want the air to go in there, and you want your individual characteristics, but you don't want any nasties in there. So muslin's good. A funnel's always helpful for not making a mess. Masking tape to keep the label on the bottles is the date that it was made, so that you're using them in rotation to get the maximum benefit. Sauerkraut, a nice wide jar so that you can put your hand in and push all the vegetables down. If you're making a water kefir or a kombucha, something like a pop-top glass bottle, because then they will develop their own nice fizzy characteristics. And that's pretty much it. So you don't need too much specialist equipment. One thing you do need is a warm environment. So I know somebody who has tried making milk kefir, but their house isn't very warm and they haven't been able to do it successfully. For me, I have a utility room, and lots of the heating pipes go through there. So that's a nice warm environment. Some people would use like a hot press, or in a sitting room or somewhere like that, a nice warm environment, but away from direct sunlight. There are a couple of things that you will need. And they will take on the individual characteristics of your unique environment. And also, I tend to refer to them a lot being like pets or children. They may behave differently in different environments. So it mightn't work the first time you try, say, making a milk kefir, but keep going. The second or the third time it'll work, and it might just take a little bit of time. Okay, so that's a little bit of the background of it all. And now I'm going to show you the milk kefir. And the recipe for the milk kefir is in the document that I'm sharing with you all after this, as are all of the notes. So you can read through them all in your own time. But I start with the milk kefir because it's the highest probiotic count really of any of them. And it's very, very simple to make. So kefir, it's a Russian word meaning for energy and feeling good. And it's over 1,000 years old. These grains, is what they're called, have come from the Caucasian mountains between Russia and Europe. And they've been handed down and handed down and handed down. So when you get these grains, normally people come to my demos and I give them the grains. But for you all online in different areas, you may be able to get the kefir grains from, say, a local health food shop. Or usually what happens within the community of fermenting foods is you end up having more grains than you can actually use. So people share them. So in Ireland, we have a Facebook group called Sharing Starter Cultures Ireland. And you just put in that you're looking for milk kefir and where you are, and you often send someone a stamped addressed envelope and you'll get it. But there may be other groups in your local area. So this is a milk kefir here. It has been in this container for 24 hours, well, a little bit more now at this stage. And I've had it covered with the muslin and the elastic band, and now it's ready to go. So it's kind of set like a thick jelly-like substance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strain it out, and I'll show you what's left and how we work on it all. So we pop it all in, and then you wash your jar. Then you get a non-metal spatula and gently help the milk go through the strainer. So I'm not trying to push the grains through. I'm gently just helping it all through, or you can do it from the other side. So this yogurt-like consistency is coming through. And at the end, you will find your milk kefir grains. So there's your grains that you pop back into your clean container. And then you pour some, we always want to use organic when we're fermenting, because fermenting amplifies things. So you don't want any pesticides or anything like that on it. You pour your organic full fat milk on top.
Full fat.
You put back on your muslin, and you put back on your elastic, your elastic band, and you're going to leave that for between 24 to 48 hours to ferment. So it's really, really simple. I do this every morning. It only takes a couple of minutes to do. What will happen after a few times is you'll have more grains than you need. So it'll be fermenting quite quickly. So I take some off and I put them in milk in the fridge with the jar sealed in a jar, and they can stay there in a little resting space for about 3 weeks before you need to do anything with them. So that's how you make it. What you get from it is this lovely thick yogurt-like consistency milk. And in that, the lactose has actually been fermented. So if you are lactose intolerant, you should be able to take this, which is fantastic. You can use a coconut milk if you need to, but about every 4th time, you need to give it a cow's milk, a run through with cow's milk, because that's what the grains like. So now we have our product. We pop it in the fridge and it's ready to use. Ideally, you want to use it within about 2 days to get the maximum probiotic count. So I have one here that I had in my fridge. So what do I do with it? You can either drink it as a glass. It tastes really, really nice, very similar to a yogurt. If I have a bowl of muesli, I pour it on top and then put a few berries, and I'd have that as my breakfast. And one of the other ways that you can do it is make a lovely smoothie. So you get some strawberries, pour on your milk kefir, pop in your banana, and the kids love this in the mornings. And then literally, blitz it up to a nice smoothie. I'm not going to turn on the blender now and make loads of noise. So there are lots of different ways that you can have it, and it really is very tasty. One thing you need to be careful with is probiotics, is your body cannot store them. So you need to take them every day. So that's why, say, if you have been on a course of antibiotics, you will often go and take probiotics, and you will take them 1 a day for about 30 days because your body can't store it. So I would have this in breakfast time, and often the kids will have a smoothie before they go to bed at the end of the day. One of the other things to be careful with fermented foods is to introduce them slowly into your diet. So if your gut isn't used to taking fermented foods, you start with a little bit. So you just start with a small, like a tablespoon. Today you might have a tablespoon, tomorrow 1.5, the next day 2 tablespoons. Just build it up gradually so your gut gets used to it. Okay, so that's the milk kefir. It's very hard in 30 minutes to try and get it all over to you. But as I say, you can look at the recipes on the document and have a look and see. But that's the milk kefir. You saw how simple it was. Just a few minutes, strain it into the bottle, into the fridge, and it's ready to go. The other one I'll just touch on, but I won't be showing you today. This is the water kefir. So there's actually little bubbles coming up through that. And basically, I would tend to prefer, this is my preference, this over kombucha, because kombucha is a sweetened tea. And I feel the chance of having a residual sugar is a lot higher in a kombucha than it would be in, say, the water kefir. And obviously with PCOS, we're trying to watch our sugar intake. So what happens with this one is I have these grains called water kefir grains. They're slightly different to the milk ones. And I put a sugar water, so it's sugar dissolved in water in. And I also have some dried fruit and some lemon. They're just to feed the grains. The idea is the grains are going to consume all of that sugar. They're going to grow and multiply. And they are going to provide you with a drink which you would then pop into a bottle like this and flavor. It's lovely with, say, fresh pomegranates or raspberries, and it becomes a natural sparkling drink. And it's really refreshing. And this is the one obviously my daughter loves when she comes in from school. And what you could do is stick a straw into it and test it and make sure it doesn't taste sweet. So if there's still sweetness there, it might need a little longer to ferment. But I can't go into any more on that one just today. But that's just to show you what it looks like. But the other thing that is very easy to make is sauerkraut. And I suppose at this stage, I should probably talk about some of the foods that are fermented foods. I know, Jimmy, you said that you'd never had fermented foods, but a pure sourdough bread is fermented. Miso is fermented. Labneh, a Middle Eastern yogurt cheese, is fermented. Each culture has had a lot of history and would have a lot of different ferments. Kimchi in Korea is fermented food, and I love kimchi. You think of it as a condiment, and it has way more lactobacilli than, say, a yogurt would have. And I use a Chinese leaf cabbage, and it's made with a paste with garlic and ginger and chili, and it's quite strong and quite pungent, but and it's very addictive. So I would put that on the side with eggs. But if you go to any Korean restaurant, you would have it. And if you were to discuss with a Korean family, they would all have their own tradition of how they make a basic sauerkraut. What I have in here is I have organic cabbage. You take the outside leaf and keep that. We're going to need that at the end. And then sometimes I use the heart of it as well. I'll show you in a minute how we use that. So you chop up your cabbage. You can put it in the food processor. You can spiralize it. You can do it on the mandolin. You can slice it with a knife. Whatever way you want to chop up your cabbage, you want to use organic. Okay, so you want to try and use the organic. For every 500 grams of vegetables, you put in 2 teaspoons of salt. Now, and then you have to massage it in. So for every 500 grams of vegetables, you put in 2 teaspoons of salt. Then we need to massage it all in. And what happens in one of my demos, you would see, I would leave it on the side for about half an hour, and it's amazing to see all the juice that would drip out of the bottom of this. But obviously in a few minutes here, I can't show you. So what you do is you coat all of the bits of the cabbage with the salt, and you're massaging it all in. Now there's lots of different recipes that you can use for this. For example, this one here is delicious. This is my summer kraut. I have white cabbage, kale, fennel, pineapple, red onion, mint, all of those vegetables all mixed together. And for every 500 grams of 2 teaspoons of salt. And then you mix it all together, and it takes about 4 to 10 days to ferment. So what you do is once you get all of this cabbage, and it's been left there for maybe half an hour, so you're getting the juice out of it, you put all of your cabbage into the jars. And then, this is just an example, you squish it all down, and you get your leaf that you had at the top, and you push that in over the top, and then you use, that's like to protect it, so that if something is going to turn, it'll be the leaf that'll turn, and you can just throw that away and put a new leaf on to protect it. You put that on, and then you might put a weight, like sometimes I use a little shot glass, or you could use a little bag with water in it in a Ziploc bag, or sometimes the core from the top, from the center of the cabbage works. So you push it all down under the water, which will naturally come out once you've left it there for half an hour, and then you close the lid. If you've left it for a while and you find there isn't enough liquid there, you can always add a little bit of spring water. But if you just be patient, massage it and be patient, you will get lots of the liquid out of it, and it will work away. So what I then tend to do is I would serve I can hear this alive, I would serve a jar of this on the table with dinner. So if we're having fish or chicken or whatever we might have, you take a tablespoon of this on the side of your plate, and you're getting another dose of probiotics. It's lovely, even if you had a toasted cheese and ham, it's lovely on the side with that. So that's the sauerkraut. You could use red cabbage, the white cabbage. In the winter, I make a beautiful one with red cabbage, and I mix in some spices like star anise and cloves and things. So if I was doing chunky spices like that, what I would do is I would tie it in a muslin, and I would put it in the center, so that when it all ferments through, afterwards you can actually remove the whole muslin, and the flavor will have gone through everything. But nobody's going to get some of that in, as they take a mouthful of it. One of the ways that I see this going is, at the moment, if you go to your GP and you've got, something they're trying to diagnose, they might do a blood test and a urine test, etc. I believe that we will get to the stage where they do a microbiome test. So it'll be testing your gut health, and it'll see what bacteria you have and what bacteria you need. So I think what will happen down the line, and I know in the UK you can get this assessed at the moment, and they will tell you what new bacteria you need. So say, for example, they said the bacteria that's in apple cider vinegar, which is another ferment, that's what you really need for say, for example, managing PCOS. You can actually put it into a ferment like this, and it'll guide the ferment. So it'll tell these vegetables that you want more of those bacteria to grow in it. So it'll mean that you will be getting the added benefits once you know what bacteria it is that you need. So I think it'll really develop in the coming years as to what bacteria you can get in it. So to summarize really on where we're at with the fermented foods, is that you need a warm environment and a dark place. It's very cyclical. So for example, for me with the milk kefir that I did, every morning I would take it off, strain it, and have more. So I know every morning that's what I do. With my water kefir, it's every second day. With the sauerkraut, I mentioned it's 4 to 10 days. 4 days, you've got your maximum probiotics. You're not going to get any more probiotics, but the texture and the flavor is going to change over time. So if you like a crunchy, mild sauerkraut, after 4 days, it'll be ready. Pop it in the fridge and it'll keep there for months. If you prefer a stronger, softer one, you could leave it for the 10 days. And when it's ready, pop it in the fridge and it'll keep for months there. So I think that's it really in terms of those. The document, I'll pop you back on there to chat.
Yeah, it's cool. I did have so you mentioned using spring water. One has to have spring water tank. You can't use tap water.
No, because chlorine inhibits what you're trying to grow. So that's where you don't want. Apparently reverse osmosis water can work, but I would tend to use the spring water because the chlorine would inhibit what you're looking for.
Okay. And the kefir milk that you made, can you like use it on cornflakes and things? You mentioned muesli.
Yes.
And coffee, dare I say coffee?
No, heat will kill it. Heat will kill the probiotics. So you don't want to put it in anything hot. You could put it on your cornflakes. I suppose if you were to put yogurt on your cornflakes, then you could. So you could, and some people do. It depends on what you like. But I think if you place it in your head where you would use a yogurt, then that's kind of the best example. I know my husband just takes a glass every day. I prefer it either, sometimes I just take it like that, but I prefer it as in a smoothie or on top of a muesli is what I like. And it's best served chilled.
Okay, all right then. Well, I won't ask any more questions. This is fascinating, and I'm kind of curious to go and try a few things myself. I know in Nigeria there are some fermented locust beans.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's sort of like my grandmother's generation made that. My mum's generation don't do it. But it may be one of those things that sort of like comes back. I mean, how did you learn these things?
Well, you see, and that's the thing. It is something that has gone, I think in our culture, we have lost it. Whereas if you look at more in Eastern Europe and Polish, they always kept their sauerkrauts and things to it. So it is, and as you say, in your grandmother's generation. So now we're starting to bring it back up because we're realizing the effect that the processed foods are having on our gut. So we're looking at more traditional methods and studying those and what people used to do, and we're now using those, reinvigorating those. And now the world, it's so much smaller. So we're having Korean kimchi in Ireland, whereas back in my grandmother's generation, obviously you wouldn't have that.
Okay, yeah. And for a woman with PCOS, how soon can she start to see improvements in her health?
It's different for everybody, Jimmy, really it is. The thing is to start off slowly and see how you go, and also have a big range of fermented foods. So you're having the milk kefir, you're having, say, the apple cider vinegar, you're having the sauerkraut, but it can be different for everyone, and some people don't find any effects. But other people have, huge positive effects, and it could start affecting, straight away. But really, it's just trying to look after your gut health is going to pay so many different benefits, balancing out your sugar levels and your hormones, etc. But just start slowly and see. And people experience different rates.
Okay, I think I'm going to lose my fermentation virginity very soon.
That's it. Yeah, follow. It's a lot of information to take in 30 minutes. So I suggested you take that document at fionasfoodforlife.ie/fermentation and read through it and look through the 4 recipes that I've given you there. Have a go. I also have a members Facebook group, Fiona's Food for Life members group, and I'm more than happy to troubleshoot any questions or any difficulties people might be having. I'd be delighted to help people out. Brilliant.
Okay then. Well, Fiona, thank you so much for what you've taught us. It's been wonderful to have a demo and see all these things be made. Thank you very much. Thank you, our watchers and listeners, for being with us. And eat right, stay healthy. Bye, Fiona. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thank you.
You're welcome.